Welcome to the 4-H Club Chartering Training brought to you by Minnesota 4-H. We hope you find this training a valuable aid in completing your club chartering documents. In preparation for the training, you will want to run copies of Forms A, B, C, and D. If you don't have these documents, please pause the video and take time to run them off. The goals for this training is for you to understand why clubs charter annually, what it means to be a chartered club, and how to complete the chartering documents. Why do clubs need a charter? The State 4-H Leader and Youth Development Extension Educator are authorized to grant use of the 4-H club name and emblem with intended uses to local clubs and groups. The charter is a written agreement signifying a club's use of the name and emblem and ensuring they are providing a positive youth development experience for all youth. Every Minnesota 4-H club must complete and submit the charter renewal form annually to the Extension Office by November 1st. What does it mean to be a chartered club? It means that your club has the privilege of identifying itself as a 4-H club by using the 4-H name and emblem, and that you agree to provide a positive youth development environment that upholds the dignity and educational purposes of the 4-H program. The club and its members will be able to be a voting member of the County 4-H Federation or Council. Minnesota 4-H volunteers are covered by the University of Minnesota Liability Insurance, and the club will have the right to raise and collect funds in the name of 4-H with approval of the 4-H staff. By completing and submitting the required documentation, clubs are committed to the following. Number 1 is adopt and operate according to the model constitution and bylaws provided for all Minnesota 4-H club. The Constitution outlines the exclusive purpose of Minnesota 4-H as providing learning and leadership experiences for members through club meetings and project work, and that the clubs shall not engage in any activities or exercise any powers that are not in furtherance of the purpose of the organization. The second commitment is to provide a quality learning environment. Minnesota 4-H utilizes the Youth Program Quality Pyramid created by the Weichert Center to define the important elements of a quality learning environment. A quality environment is safe, supportive, interactive, and finally, Commitment 3 is to comply with the following organizational expectations: to ensure that adults who work with the clubs are officially accepted as Minnesota 4-H volunteers before having unsupervised access to any youth, and to maintain a membership level that's conducive to group learning, and in 4-H that means there's a minimum of 3 families and 6 members. Clubs need to gather a minimum of 6 times during the year, and clubs need to be accountable for all money raised and dispersed by the group following the financial guidelines and reporting procedures of the Minnesota 4-H Youth Development Program, and to comply with the Equal Opportunity Statement of the University of Minnesota, including Extension, who are committed to the policy that all persons shall have equal access to its programs, facilities, and employment without regard to race, color, creed, religion, national origin, sex, age, marital status, disability, public assistance status, veteran status, or sexual orientation. The charter is simply an outline for the club to establish a plan for the new 4-H program year starting on October 1st of the current year and running through next September 30th. It's a roadmap for the upcoming year. Clubs should gather to decide a program plan, establish goals that they would like to achieve, and set a budget that will financially support the plan. So let's take a look at the chartering documents. Club chartering consists of the documents on the screen: Forms A, B, C, and D. We will go over each document so you understand the significance and the steps to complete each form. Form A consists of 3 documents. Page 1 is on the screen. Form A, page 1, is simply a check sheet for the club to check off after each form is completed. I want to draw your attention to Charter Approved so you don't forget this step. Remember to include the date of the club meeting where the charter was presented and approved. And when you move down to Authorized Signatures, this is the signature of the new club president and 4-H club leader, who will sign and date the form after they review that everything is correct. This step is the last step in completing all the chartering documents. Form A, page 2, is the list of youth officers and adult volunteers. Please note that all youth listed on this document, or any youth in a leadership position, must be enrolled in 4-H, as well as any adults listed on this document or in a leadership role must be Minnesota 4-H adults who have completed the screening process. Minnesota 4-H requires 2 Minnesota 4-H screen volunteers to be listed on this form. If you have all this information gathered on a separate document, you can attach it instead of handing in this form. Let's take a look at the bottom, where it talks about 4-H club program goals. Each club must have a minimum of 3 program goals for the upcoming year. This club has established 3. Goal 1 is that they are going to have a welcoming committee to create a welcoming environment, and it'll be made up of youth who will greet members and guests. Goal 2 is they're going to complete a service learning project with the local nursing home, and they're going to plant a community garden. The goal is they'll take it to the county fair. And goal 3 is that each member will have the opportunity to give a presentation at their club meetings, and then they'll be encouraged to demonstrate at the county fair. Once the club goals are set, a calendar will be much easier to create, and the calendar should meet the goals of the club. So this calendar supports the goals that this club established. And remember, they wanted to do a service learning project at the nursing home, so the steps to complete the goal are laid out in the calendar. I won't read all these to you, but most meetings have something to do with the service learning project. In October, they're going to discuss the project as a group. In March, they're going to meet with the nursing home staff and the residents. And in June, they'll determine how the project will be presented at county fair. Please make sure that a copy of the club calendar is turned into the extension office for insurance purposes. If there is an accident or an emergency, the program coordinator will need to know that the event is taking place. If a meeting date changes or a location changes, you should simply contact the extension office. If your club already has a calendar established on a separate form, you can submit that in place of this document. Form B, the financial summary. The top half of this form is a summary of the club's checking and savings account from the previous year or the year that was just completed. This information will be used to file the club's 990N for tax purposes. On the left-hand side where it says checking, the blue box was the starting balance last October 1st when the previous treasurer took office. The green box is a total of all income that came in the account, and the yellow box is a total of all expenses that went out. The box at the bottom is the ending balance on September 30th, which was the last day of the office of the previous treasurer. You can see this club also had a savings account. So a year ago, October 1st, the starting balance was $557.23. They listed the income, there were no expenses, and the total savings on September 30th of this year was $565.45. Then you can see how checking and savings totaled together to equal $1,216.11. This is the total income this club has and is used for budgeting purposes. The top half of this form is part of the Treasurer Book Excel checkbook ledger. So if your youth treasurer and adult advisor has been using this document, then the checking portion of this document will be completed. You will want to get this form from the club treasurer. Now the bottom portion of this page is the signers for the new year, which is this coming October 1st through next September 30th. So let's take a look at the bottom part of this page. Please note that all checks written in the name of 4-H must have a youth and an adult signature. Because of this practice, it is recommended that there are 2 youth signers on the account and 2 adult signers on the account. All youth on the signature card must be enrolled 4-H members, and all adults must be screened Minnesota 4-H volunteers. Let's take a look at the column to the left. The first signer is the youth treasurer, and this person's duty is to sign all the checks and complete the duties of the treasurer. And the next person is an additional youth signer, and this person would be needed only in the event that the youth treasurer was not present and a check needed to be signed. This is not a mandatory position, you don't have to have it, but it's just a best practice. The next person listed is the adult advisor to the youth treasurer. And then finally, best practice is to have a 4th person who is noted as your adult verifier to sign in case the adult advisor is not present. Now the duties of these 2 adults vary depending on the relationship between the youth treasurer and the adult advisor. And you can find the relationship between these 2 people by looking at the next column. This asks if the youth treasurer and adult advisor live in the same household or if they're related. If the column is left blank, This would mean that they're not living in the same household and they're not related in any way. And so the fourth signer, who is your adult verifier, is not required, but again, is used for best practices. Rules for the adult treasurer would be then outlined in the green column. However, if it was indicated in this column that the youth treasurer and adult advisor were related, and related is outlined in that first column to the left in the top gray box, which means that their mother, father, guardian, son, daughter, sister, brother are living in the same household, then an adult verifier is mandatory. They must be listed on this card, and the rules of the adult advisor and the adult verifier are listed in the orange column. So you'll want to make sure that you read both of these columns to make sure that your club is following policy. Form C is the proposed budget, and it's an outline of the new 4-H year that we're about to enter. So that starts October 1st and runs through next September 30th. The top box is the total of all the money in the club's checking and savings, and you can see this club has $1,216.11. The first section is a list of all the income the club anticipates it will raise in the new year to support their goals. The second section is a list of all the expenses this club anticipates it will spend in order to support their goals. And the bottom box is the total that they feel they will have at the end of the program year, which would be next September 30th. So let's review. In the top box, the total income this club has in checking and savings is $1,216.11. Then listed are all the income sources, and this club anticipates it will have income of $770. Then this club lists all of its expenses, and they have estimated expenses of $1,510. So at the end of next year, at the completion of the fiscal year, they anticipate they'll have about $476. This is just a guess, but they know that this is good money management because the money that they're bringing in, they are spending on educational purposes for their youth. Make sure that this is proposed and presented at a club meeting, that it's dated, signed by the club secretary, and placed in the secretary book. You've heard me talk about the Club Treasurer Excel Checkbook Ledger. And on the screen, that's what you will see. This is an Excel document where all deposits and expenses are to be recorded. And when used correctly, Form B, the financial summary, and Form C, the proposed budget, will start to generate automatically. And these can be found at the tabs at the bottom. You are looking at the September Excel checkbook ledger, which would be the last month of the previous treasurer, and you can see the club ended with $650.66. So when clicking on those bottom tabs, you would find the Minnesota 4-H Annual Club Summary, which is Form B to the left, and the club proposed budget would be to the right. If the club treasurer used the Excel checkbook ledger, then the checking portion would be complete. If they didn't, it will have to be recorded manually. The savings always has to be recorded manually simply because there's no place to record savings in the Excel checkbook ledger. And then box F, $1,216.11, that would also generate automatically. You can see how that number pops over to the top box on the club proposed budget. And again, if using the Excel checkbook ledger, that'll already be filled in. And if not, you will need to input that manually. If the youth treasurer and adult advisor did use the checkbook ledger, you will want to use Form B and C from them. It could be emailed to you or put on a jump drive so that it's accessible for you or for someone to be able to type on. And finally is the 4-H Club Treasurer Book Annual Review. So number 1 says, at the close of the previous year and before the new treasurer book is passed on to the new treasurer, a review of the books must be done. The person or team reviewing the books cannot be living in the same household, related to, or on the previous signature card. Related refers to mother, father, guardian, son, daughter, brother, sister, or spouse. Just a reminder that the 4-H program coordinator and the county support staff are not allowed to perform the review. Number 2 is a list of all the documents that the review team or the reviewer needs to complete the review. And number 3 is a list of all the things the reviewer is looking for. So it's very important that the reviewer or the review team has this document so they can complete the review. And then page 2 is the place for the reviewer to put their suggestions. So down on the bottom, if the reviewer decides that checks are out of order or maybe receipts are missing, that information will need to be passed on to the new treasurer and the new adult advisor so they can make the changes and have the books accurate for the start of the new season. In close, I would love for you to encourage the new youth treasurer and adult advisor to complete the treasurer training and use the Excel checkbook ledger, because in the end, the chartering process is much easier. And just a reminder that all club charters must be turned into the county extension office on or before November 1st. And if you have any issues, you can contact your program coordinator. And a final reminder to please take a moment to complete the evaluation survey. It's below the chartering video because your feedback will give us information on how to improve this training. If you're taking this in a group, the program coordinator can distribute a paper survey and collect it afterward. In close, we'd like to thank you for taking this training and for being a valuable leader of Minnesota 4-H. And thank you for the leadership and education you provide today's youth.